Welcome to a Cast for Crows, the Game of Thrones inspired podcast here on Dead Screen. We are talking about Season 5, Episode 3, The High Sparrow. My name is Drew Maroon.
I'm Alexa Rahman-Frost.
And I'm Joe Ballard.
And so jumping right into Episode 3 here, I figured we'd talk about The High Sparrow, the episode was named after. So I'll let Joe sort of take this over and give a quick rundown on what the High Sparrow is and all that.
Yeah, see, the High Sparrow and his followers were kind of born out of when Tywin Lannister and his army kind of went around sacking and burning cities and towns in the aftermath of the War of the Five Kings. And they've come to King's Landing to help out, those in poverty, help feed them, and, give them religious lessons, I guess. And basically what they do, they're a little more, as you saw, they're a little more active with the way they exposed the High Septon during his role-playing sex game. And I think Alexa said it best a little while ago when we were talking. She called them radicals, and I would say that's a very good description. Is they're religious radicals?
Yeah, definitely. They just kind of look kind of cultish and creepy, but
Yeah, they were in the sort of brown robes or something.
yeah, and they all have like weird shaped heads. Lancel Lannister was like almost unrecognizable, right? He's part of them, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they introduced that in episode 2 or 1. They sort of brought him back.
Yeah. So I mean, he was unrecognizable.
Yeah. So it seems like a few of the storylines have like these established sort of figureheads, I guess, and they're these sort of maybe cultish is the right word, sort of these like underlying groups of people that are sort of messing things up. So, you see that here with the High Sparrows, and then who are the people with Daenerys and
Sons of the Harpy.
yes. So it seems like these figureheads have these sort of like underlying things that are gonna mess some stuff up in the future.
I thought it was just weird though, because it felt like it came so out of the blue in this season, just because like you barely ever heard talk about the High Septon at all, and nothing of the Sparrows, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they decide to show the High Septon playing a random sex game, and they basically just brought him in to do that and then get busted, and that was how they chose to introduce the High Sparrow and his followers.
So the High Sparrow, that character we've not seen before, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
I recognize him.
And so this is pretty off topic, but what is that guy from? Because I saw him and I was like, do we know this character? Like, I've seen this guy before.
I told Alexa this a few weeks ago. He was the same guy who played Elizabeth Swann's father in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that might have been it. I just remember I saw him and he looked really familiar, and I was like, it feels like we haven't seen this guy before, but I remember seeing, like, I don't know. I got all sort of looped up in there. I knew we hadn't actually seen him before, but I felt like I knew who he was already,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that could be interesting. I think, it was interesting. I think it was Cersei that said it was like the two pillars or whatever are the church and the crown or whatever. I don't remember how she said it, but
yeah, something along those lines. So.
Yeah, and it was interesting
The
because
seven kingdoms can't survive without both the faith and the crown.
yeah, and they really didn't talk about, and the most faith I feel that has gone on in the show has been the like Lord of Light and all that stuff, and Melisandre or whatever, and all her fire stuff. Like, I feel like that's the most like religious-y stuff, sort of. but other than that, I feel like it's been kind of absent. So it was interesting that she said that, just sort of reminds you that it's as important as it's supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that because I mean, we hear about these religions, the Lord of the Light, and then like the seven gods and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's interesting that like it's playing out like that, and we're like finally getting a little bit into the religion, and I mean, it kind of like was a little or commentary on like just religious corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was interesting, but it did kind of feel like out of place just because we've never seen that really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell you it felt a little more natural in the books because the reason that Cersei needed the High Sparrow in the first place was because she had to get King Tommen, I guess, like, legitimized. He kind of, like, any new king has to be legitimized by the faith before they can officially become king. And that's why Cersei wanted him. And she had gotten rid of the previous High Septon because Tyrion had installed him a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt, because of that, it felt a little more natural for him to be incorporated into the books and in Cersei's storyline. But yeah, it just felt like completely out of the blue here. Like you don't hear anything about it, and then all of a sudden, bam! It's like it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of been a theme for these first 3 episodes. Is like they're kind of pushing some of this stuff on you that you're not super familiar with, but you're like, all right, well, this is very important now, so I have to, like,
pay attention.
Yeah. And so I think that just comes, and you said this before, it just comes with having such an extensive history behind everything and trying to fit it into this show format that they can't talk about everything all the time. But I feel like, especially this season, there's been a lot of, like, I don't know if rushing through stuff is the right word, but like just getting you up to speed.
Yeah.
By sort of just like throwing you in it. It's not like, oh, we're familiar with this and this is how it's got there. You're just like, boom, right there. We're starting this.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention.
I mean, I feel like this episode in general was just like it had a lot to do with the religions, different religions that I like out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it does kind of feel like forced and like, okay, so we've been talking about this, but let me show you.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to say about the High Sparrow?
No, I think that pretty much covers it for this week, at least.
Yeah, right. I mean, we have to mention it. The episode is kind of named after him.
Yeah. Sort of following kind of a religious theme that started it off, we want to talk a little bit about Arya and what's going on with her in the House of Black and White. Because while I think her storyline and her as a character are super interesting, I have no idea what's going on. And I don't know if I'm supposed to have any idea, and I've just, like, clearly missed things, but, like, I just have no idea what's going on. And I still think that what she's going through is, like, some of the most interesting stuff that we've been watching, but it's just, like, the whole time I'm like, well, now I gotta figure out what this is, and I gotta learn what this is. And it's the exciting part of the show, but I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel better, I'm, like, still kind of confused on it, too, so it's not just you.
Okay.
All right, well, I can explain a little bit to you guys without spoiling too much. To tell you what they do in the House of Black and White, like you saw the random stranger go in and Jack and Hagar gave him like a flask of water. Mm-hmm. And then obviously he was dead after that. The point of that is to show that is where some people go to die, like when they're genuinely ready to just end their life and see what comes next. And what the House of Black and White does is they call it giving them the gift of death, almost. Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of a putting you out of your misery type thing. They just kind of help them, and it helps them go in a painless manner. So that's what that was. And I know Arya's, as far as what Arya actually did for the most part, I mean, it's not really that interesting. It wasn't this week, but I promise it is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, like, I was so confused in that scene where the dude just kind of just plops down, and then, like, this girl comes in, and I'm like, oh, is that, like, him transforming into like a new person, and I was like super confused. I
Yeah. I felt like
did
I
not
didn't.
get it.
Yeah, and that's how I felt lost for a whole bunch of that. But again, it was pretty interesting. Um, so I remember when she's going through her thing. He was like, "Oh, you want to be the So like, how much are we supposed to know about the faceless men as just show watchers? How much have we been like educated on that?
I feel like we don't know very much about them. We just know kind of
Yeah,
like they're
'cause
assassins, and they can change their faces.
because I remember somebody saying something about faceless men at some point, but Arya was just so very clearly like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't. Okay,
Well, Jaqen Hagar introduced himself as a faceless man to her, so that's how she knows.
yeah," but that was back in what, season 2 or something?
Yeah, that was like season 2.
Yeah. And so I don't know. She said it so confidently, and I was wondering if I had missed like a clear conversation or something where it was refreshed. But I forget that Game of Thrones is beyond that. They do things as they probably should. Um, but yeah, he was like, "Oh, you want to be this?" But I see Arya's clothes and her whatever and her sword and blah, blah. And so she goes and tries to get rid of everything, but she doesn't throw Needle, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, she doesn't throw Needle in the water, and she goes and hides it in a rock. And so at some point soon, she's gonna get yelled at.
I mean, the way I saw it is she's just not fully ready to let go of her life. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct, I looked it up, but Jon Snow gave her a needle.
Yeah,
So it's just kind of
Yes.
like, so she's still kind of like not completely ready to let go of who she is because she still deeply cares for her family and still, I mean, her whole point of being a faceless man is so that she can avenge them.
hmm
So that's how I took it. But I mean, yeah, she'll probably be yelled at.
yeah, and that was one of those things that I don't remember how they addressed it in the show, like, because I read the first book, so I have that knowledge, and they made it pretty clear that Jon and Arya had a really close relationship, and it was they kind of looked after each other, and there was that special bond there. And I remember in the show, I still think he was the one that gave it to her, but it was very it was quick, like it didn't have the substance behind it as it did in the book, and so I think you're right. I think that means a lot to her. It's not just her sword. There's like it means a lot to her, and she wasn't ready to just chuck it in the water. But I just know she's gonna get yelled at.
I mean, I feel like Arya, specifically with Jon Snow, they both always felt like outcasts. So I think that's just their special bond that they have. They both look the most alike, so they just kind of that's the bond there. But I don't remember. I had to look up who gave it to her because I was like, did Ned give this to her? Like, is that why she's crying?
Yeah.
So I mean, I had to look it up. So.
Seems you're the average Game of Thrones watcher now. I don't know. Is there anything you want to add on that, Joe?
Not too much. I mean, I think as far as the show, they haven't introduced too much about the Faceless Men or any of that. But I mean, even Arya herself didn't really know much. She had the coin that Jaqen gave her, and she knew that Jaqen was capable of changing faces and committing murder without anyone knowing, because she had him commit those murders in season 2, I think it was. And yeah, she remembered that, and that's why she went to Bravos in the first place, was to go find him. But other than neither she or we know that much yet as far as the show goes.
Okay. I don't know. I just think that falls right back into her storyline's just more interesting than everybody else that's going on right now, I feel like. So we got to see where I'm jumping ahead. Okay, so we wanted to talk about Margaery and Tommen and their whole deal. So the note that we have for this is that no one died at this wedding.
I know, it never happened.
And I put a sad face because I feel like we've been not given a lot of action this season so far. Which, I was talking earlier to Joe, like, I don't sit there during the show and I'm not like, man, I wish something some action would happen. It's not till the show ends and I'm watching the credits and I'm like, damn, I wish something would have happened. But like, I'm still totally engrossed in it while it's going on. But we should get a nice fight soon. I think we're owed one. But yeah, nobody died.
Yeah, it's very unlike Game of Thrones. There's a wedding, no one died.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they can't have deaths at every single wedding, or else it would be too predictable.
That is true.
Can I just note how weird it is to see Tommen and Margaery having sex, considering Tommen is about 6 years old in the books?
Yeah,
I read that he was like 9.
I still haven't
something.
fully gotten over that.
So I knew that he was supposed to be really young in the books, but even in the show, like I'm pretty sure they recast him like 3 times, but he still looks really young, and I thought that was just kind of weird.
Well, it's also weird because the actress who plays her is like 30, and then this kid's, I think he's like 17.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you can see the age difference there.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that Marjorie's supposed to be like young, but like, you can only make a 30-year-old look so young.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem really weird.
I thought what was much more enjoyable was Margaery sassing out Cersei repeatedly.
Mm-hmm. That was
great.
She did it in such like a kind of innocent way, but at the same time it was like, damn.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was just so like awkwardly just funny, where she's just like, yeah, we've been like having sex all night. I'm so tired, and just kept it up, and it's like, oh my god, like she's still his mom. Like that's so weird.
Yeah.
What's interesting when you really analyze Tommen and Joffrey, though, I mean, we know they're complete opposites in every single way, and yet Margaery continues to have significant influence over both of them. Like she had influenced Joffrey significantly before he died, and now, she's slipping little things into Tommen's mind, like, oh, it's so sweet, you'll be her little lion, and she'll always be there watching over you, and then next scene, Tommen's like, wouldn't you be happy having Casterly Rock, Mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
It shows you how good Marjorie's manipulation skills are, that she's able to have that kind of effect on 2 completely different young men.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I thought it was just like, and you just see in Cersei's face, she's like, this damn girl, like, just influencing my kids. But, like, I mean, pretty girl influences guys who are really desperate to get laid. So.
Her character has always kind of had that same sort of manipulating Cersei, sort of like, I'm going to get this done. Sort of whatever I need to do, but she does it kind of subtly and, not because she's physically strong or whatever. And so they've always been very similar in that way. But something about her in previous seasons, like, she seemed more sincere, maybe? I don't know. Like, I always just perceived her a different way. And now I feel like my feelings that I had towards Cersei have sort of moved over to her, and I have sort of this more sympathetic look at Cersei.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Marjorie just does it so brilliantly, because she basically makes it seem like it's their idea, like whatever she's implanting into their minds.
Yeah.
So I think it's really sneaky, which I mean, I understand that there could be some comparisons to Cersei there, because Cersei is incredibly manipulative as well. But I don't know, I was kind of enjoying it. Like, I didn't feel bad for Cersei. I was like, about time someone showed you up.
I don't know. They've done something with Cersei, and I feel like it's just this season, because I don't remember really feeling like this last season. But like, I never wanted things to go her way, because she was always getting stuff to go her way, and she was always like doing this, trying to make this big thing happen. And now I do. Like, I have some sympathy for her, and I want her to, like, I don't know, like, if Tommen was gonna make her leave, I was like, no, she doesn't want to leave. She can stay. Make her, like, I don't know. I have some sympathy for her now, and I've always liked her storyline, but I like it more now, I guess. I don't like Marjorie as much as I did.
I don't know.
Um,
I think she's great, but that's just me.
uh,
So, Andy, here's a question for you then. With your slightly changing views on Marjorie and Cersei, do you still think Marjorie is the one that the little witch predicted would cast down Cersei?
so no, because I don't think Game of Thrones would be like, oh, here's
Is
this, and
that
it's
predictable?
and that's the
Yeah.
only reason why. If by all other accounts, that seems to be the way that it's going. Is this person's coming in doing stuff kind of the way she did it, and is sort of taking over all the stuff that she had and she wanted, and now she's just kind of standing there like, all right, well, I'm the Queen Mother or whatever her name is now, and everybody's dead. My husband's dead, kid's gone, Jamie's gone, just sort of like standing here with my one kid, and he doesn't like me anymore. It's like, I don't know. So I only don't think that because I don't think Game of Thrones would be so straightforward.
Yeah, it'd be too predictable.
But it would still make sense. Like if it happened, I wouldn't be like shocked. Like I'd still feel like it's going that way. Sort of throwing something into the Cersei conversation. I liked the scene where she was sending the little note to Littlefinger, and I'm gonna totally butcher his name, but she went to whoever the new Master of Whispers is,
Qyburn.
Qyburn. And so I liked that scene, and I liked the way they set it up, and I kind of am annoyed. I'm kind of annoyed about the director or producers or whoever's decision it was. While he was in there, working on the rat, and then he was looking at the note, and they sort of like lingered on the table a little bit, and she's like, "Oh, how's your work coming?" He's like, "It's going." Like I wish they would have just cut it there because all the stuff was in place that you could tell what was going on.
Mhm.
And then they left it there, and then they showed whatever's under the sheet move, and you have to assume that it's going to be either Joffrey or Tyrion or somebody she's trying to bring back to life is what I feel, right?
I know who it is, but I can't say anything.
Okay. I don't know. I liked that because that was an interesting scene for me. I wish they would have cut it like 3 seconds too early, or 3 seconds earlier, just for people who are being observant. You're like, oh, look what's on the table and sort of what he's doing to catch it, and other people just be like, okay, whatever. But they like left it too long, and they had him, just whatever it was, shake. But that's interesting. I don't know. That was interesting to me. I feel like that's gonna be a
You're gonna have like an undead Joffrey or something in the show.
yeah, and like that's what I remember that as being one of those points in the show where I started sort of thinking a lot about what was going on and who it could have been, and I had to stop to pay attention to what was coming next because I realized people were talking, and I was like, well, who could it be? It could be this person or this person, but I mean, my gut has to assume that it's Joffrey or Tyrion, or, one of them.
Tywin.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So,
I didn't even think of it. I was just like, when you were like, who's that Frankenstein wannabe? I was like, what are you talking about? I thought it was like the High Septon and he was just like torturing him or something.
oh, yeah, and that, I don't know. And that's just that was where my brain jumped to. It was that she was, because he was cast out from whatever he was. He was like an archmage or, something before, right? And then he got booted for his experiments, because I know they've shown him being kind of like weird with some of that stuff. Like there was the head earlier, and he was like, "No, I'll take it. I'll do something with it." So he's been experimenting for a while, but I don't know.
Now I feel like the average show watcher now.
Yeah,
What's going on here, Andy?
the shoes have switched. So I think the next thing we want to talk about was Sansa and Ramsay. So this was,
Yes, we do.
and I say this every time, but every time that storyline comes on, I sit back and I'm like, how much does Joe know about this? Is this new? Is this like groundbreaking stuff for him? It's like, I don't know. And so I have to imagine every time there's like kind of one of those big revelations in her storyline, I want to imagine you being like, what is this sort of thing. So I don't know. There's like an extra little bit of tension when I watch this episode. So can you talk a little bit about how much of that you knew and how much you didn't?
Yeah, there is. Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about, which seems crazy because it looked like just a simple scene, but there's so much more behind it. First off, I will tell you, I'll go ahead and spoil this from the books. It's not in the show, but Ramsay did not marry Sansa in the books. Instead, he married Arya Stark. Except,
Not
hold on.
Arya.
It was not the real Arya Stark. The Boltons and their supporters paraded her as Arya to get the North behind them fully. And so it'll be very, very interesting to see just how far they decide to go with this Sansa-Ramsay marriage, if it even happens. But I can tell you that some of the things that Ramsay does to his bride in the book are so violent that HBO will not, even HBO won't go there. So I'm so scared, though, because Sophie Turner, the actress who plays Sansa, told us before the season that we could be in for something like really, really shocking regarding Sansa's storyline. Like, it would be dark, shocking. And I'm like, oh God, what are they gonna show us? You know?
Yeah, but, I read that she filmed like a super traumatic scene for her, that she like just was completely traumatized by it. So hopefully they don't get too bad.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You know, Littlefinger, he cares about Sansa. Obviously, you know, he loved Catelyn deeply. So I suspect there's so much more to this than what we're really seeing. And, you know, aside from what I just told you from the books, I don't actually know anything else. So I'm going to throw out a quick theory here and see what you guys think of it. I think that Littlefinger I think this whole alliance is a ruse just to kind of show the entire North that Sansa Stark is alive and well. And I believe that his real alliance is going to end up being with Stannis, and that he will, like he mentioned to Roose Bolton, one, he mentioned that the North remembers. He said that himself. Two, he noted that Cersei's power is decreasing with every day and that King Tommen is soft. And three, he noted that he has the entire Eyrie behind him, like the Vale. And yeah, I have a feeling that once war comes, that he is going to throw in his lot with Stannis. That's my gut feeling. But what did you guys think about that?
Yeah, we were talking about this when we were making the topics. There is no way that Littlefinger is going to ally with Roose Bolton because he was in love with Catelyn. There's no way. Like, that's just not happening. And I think he cares for Sansa, so he's not going to let her like marry this like sadistic creep. So, I mean, he even told her like avenge them. So I think that this is like some plot to, show the North that Sansa Stark's still very much alive, and to knock out the Boltons.
So, I think I agree with you guys. Littlefinger, I could always kind of tell what he was doing, like maybe not super clearly, but I always had a vague idea. And then there was a while that I just had no idea what he was doing. He was sort of like, I couldn't predict it, but I think you sort of nailed it. Like, you know, he said to her early on, like, hey, if you don't want to go, you know, just tell me and we'll go. You know, we can just leave. And then, you know, I think you're right. I think he clearly cares for her. And so he's not going to let anything too bad happen to her, I'd get. Like, not intentionally. He's not going to put her in, like, mortal danger or anything, but yeah, I don't know. I don't ever know what he's talking about. He's too smart for me.
I also took him being like, you know, if you want to leave, we can leave.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that was sincere. I think that was an emotional manipulation. because then he was like, but this is your chance to avenge your family.
Yeah, no, and I
So
think you agree, but I just feel like, what you were saying about him telling Sansa to sort of avenge them and, man up and take control of it. I think it's all part of trying to get her to do something, but I don't think he wants to like throw her in and just let her, let whatever happen to her to sort of
no,
get
I
whatever his
agree.
desire is.
I feel like he is willing to go to extremes, but definitely not willing to put her in mortal danger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like he's even said it before, like she looks a lot like Catelyn, so just the reminder is enough to like not want her to die, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I liked the scene between him and what's the
Bruce Bolton.
Yeah, Bruce. I liked that scene. That was. I knew it was Bolton. Couldn't remember.
You said Bruce. It's Bruce.
Bruce, whatever. Mr. Bolton, man. I liked that scene between them because they were both like pretending to be friendly, sort of at the beginning, and then they're just like, no, this isn't gonna work. Like, I'm aware of you and you're aware of me, so all right, bye. Like, I don't know. I thought that was a good scene. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, well, it's a great scene because you have two cold, calculated characters who barely ever make a misstep in their own journeys, and like like I said, I don't think any of us believes that this alliance will last very long, but it's necessary for both of them to take another step because, Sansa's kind of a pawn almost for both of them because, as Roose was telling Ramsay, they need her to unite the North behind them and not just rule out of fear. But Littlefinger also needs needs Sansa for God knows what his end game is, but yeah, either way, he will, if he does choose to, rise up against the Boltons, then they can rally. They have a Stark to rally around,
Yeah.
But yeah,
I know we also wanted to discuss like who we thought the North would side with in the event that things do go awry. Like I'm Team Stark. I think the North would go for the Starks. So.
I feel like that's the way the whole show sets it up too. I feel like, and I agree with you. I just think that's like they were the Starks, controlled the North for forever, and if there's other people came in and the Boltons are in charge of it now technically, but there's a Stark still around. Like I think you're right. I think everybody's going to side with whatever.
See, this is so much more. It's so much more obvious in the show though, because like I said, they marry Ramsay to a fake Arya Stark in the book, and you get the sense that there are some characters who realize she's a fake, and then there's others that don't, and so a lot more, like a lot more people are still siding with the Boltons out of fear, but I feel like it's already a little more predictable in the show just because they're ready to show the world that here's Sansa Stark, she's alive and well, you can unite behind us now, so But yeah, I don't. What was even like I said, I wrote this on Twitter last night, but I think the most important words in that whole episode from anyone were when the serving lady comes in to Sansa's room, and she says, "Oh, what does she say? Good evening, Lady Sansa. The North remembers."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean the way I see it. The Boltons obviously have a lot of power, but, I mean, everyone loved the Starks. They were, like, the most beloved family, especially in the North. And Roose Bolton betrayed them, so he's kind of like just a traitor. So I would imagine that people would want to, like, ally with the Starks, but there is also the fact that the Freys do have a lot of power. They're obviously going to ally with the Boltons.
So, how long have the Boltons been like in charge of the North in terms of, the passage of time?
You mean in the show?
Yeah, because I mean, like if they've only been in charge for like a couple months or whatever, then obviously it's like what who's gonna side with them really? But if they've been in power for a couple of years or whatever, I don't know what that passage of time is.
That's a good question, actually, because you have to try to think about how long ago the Red Wedding was. And in terms of the show, it's probably about 6 to 12 months.
Okay. So, I don't know. I just feel like that's not a long passage of time to get a whole bunch of people on your side, especially if you took it in such a way that, they did. They just, I don't know. I feel like it just makes sense for everybody to side with the Starks. So can you do a little refresher on what Ramsay was talking to Reek about at the end of last season? Because I know it sort of got complex. They were trying to have Reek pretend to be Theon, go do something. What was that something?
Oh, okay. Shoot, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember if they showed this in the show, but what the reason he told him to be Theon again was to go down there to Moat Cailin, which is where they were yesterday, the Boltons and Theon.
Mm-hmm.
And, they needed him to go down there because it was still held by the Ironborn, some of Theon's former some of Theon's former comrades, and he convinced them to surrender in the hope that Ramsay would let them live. Mm-hmm. Except obviously Ramsay beheaded them at the end.
Okay, because I remember, I don't know, I thought that, and this is probably just me being dumb, but I expected him to walk in and pretend to be Theon and not, shoveling mud or whatever he was doing before.
Yeah. I mean, Andy and I were discussing how basically Sansa's arrival is going to impact Reek, maybe remind him of his life as Theon, and maybe just kind of help him snap out of it.
Yeah, and I don't know, I was surprised during that scene because at first it seemed like he was like, oh, Sansa remembers me, I can't get caught. And he didn't have any of that, Theon in him anymore. But then there was another scene where it lingered on him for a minute or so. And I thought, oh yeah, maybe this is sort of kicking out the Reek a little.
See, the way I saw it, it was Theon being ashamed. So it wasn't necessarily a Reek thing.
Yeah,
it was oh, she can't see me like this.
Yeah, I had it the exact opposite way. I thought it was, if she sees me, she'll recognize me and notice that something's up. So I have to be hidden, so I don't ruin anything.
I would take it as a combination of both of those, actually, because I mean, I would have thought that if Sansa had seen him, then she basically would have attempted to murder him right there because she knows that he betrayed Robb.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think both of you guys are right, actually. But yeah, it's Theon's story is so fascinating just because it's a psychological thing, Ramsay tortured him for so long, and he drummed this Reek thing into him that you saw last season when his sister tried to come rescue him, that he didn't even want it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was Reek. He became Reek.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost, if you want to draw a comparison to Star Wars, it's like Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
He had become another person almost entirely. And so, it'll be interesting to see if Theon is still in there somewhere.
Yeah, I remember when he was beginning to torture him, and I was like, this dude, screw this dude, he deserves it. And then I was like, this is excessive.
Mm-hmm.
This is he's lost his sense of self. This is ridiculous. So I could see that.
The next thing we sort of wanted to touch on was Jon in his first acts as the Night Watch commander.
Yes, and we talked last week about how Stannis was supposed to make more of an attempt to convince him to become Jon Stark, and funny enough, we got to see all of that this week. And how he tries to, he reminds him of his family. He reminds him of, it's interesting how he said you're stubborn just like your father and as honorable.
Mm-hmm.
And Jon says, you can do me no higher praise, your grace.
Mm-hmm.
And Stannis goes, it wasn't intended as praise. Honors for a guy your father killed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I loved that little bit, and I thought it was interesting how Davos stayed behind afterwards, and he seemed to give Jon quite a bit more to ponder.
Yeah.
So,
And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Davos, I've always liked his character a lot more than Stannis, at least in the show, because I feel like although he believes in Stannis, he has like such a more logical brain about everything, which I think is what makes those two characters work together. But I think that was a perfect example. Stannis is like, I want you to do this, you're not going to do it? Alright, I'm out of here. And, Davos at least could talk logically like a human to him and not like a remote king sort of thing.
Yeah.
As far as his first acts as the Night's Watch commander, it was interesting to see him give the first ranger duties to Sir Alistair, and then as far as beheading Lord Janos, were you guys surprised that he swung the sword, or did you kind of expect that?
I didn't. I didn't really expect it. I thought he was going to give him, he gave him a couple chances to not have that happen, while they were inside. And they got outside, he's like, you have any last words? And the dude started, whining. And it was at that point that I knew he wasn't going to let it happen. Because, I feel like that was a calculated move by Jon to give the first ranger to, like, his enemy in there, quote unquote. And then this other guy who's sort of stepping out of line very clearly, he's like, nope, I'm not having it. I will respect you guys and sort of what you're capable of, but if you're going to step out of line and act like this, I'm not going to, I'm not going to let it go. And then
it's also poetic justice too, because if you'll remember back in season 1, it was Lord Janos who sold out Ned Stark, and he was like, he made that deal with Littlefinger and Cersei, and he was the one who actually arrested Ned Stark, and he was advocating his beheading. And Arya in the books, Arya sees this, and she sees Lord Slint. And she goes, I wish someone would behead him. And then, it ends up being Jon who does it in the end. So a bit of poetic justice there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. See, that scene just kind of reminds me of like one of the first scenes of the whole show, where that guy from the Wall had abandoned his post because he had seen the White Walkers, and then Ned Stark was like, well, you abandoned your post, like, you gotta die. And, he even said, like, do you have any last words? And the same hesitation was, like, seen in Ned's face because he didn't want to do it, but he knew that he had to.
Yeah, and I think
so he's, like, very much like his father, and we still see this to this day. And, something Stannis said. So it's just that Stark honor.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. I think it's things work a certain way. He seemed remorseful. Jon seemed like he didn't necessarily want to do it, but it's got to, that's how we do things. So it's kind of got to happen.
I loved how it was the exact same way in the books too. I loved how they cut right to Stannis after it was done, and he just gave him this tiny little hint of a nod of approval. He's like, "Yep, you're learning how it has to be done."
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because in appointing Sir Alistair, he's doing what he said he was going to do. He's keeping his enemies close. But with Janos Slynt, it's like, well, okay, I'm also getting rid of my enemies. So he did what Stannis told him to do while also doing what he said he was going to do. So I think it was funny just kind of see like Stannis like, nice job, kid.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked John's look right after it. Like, he just seemed annoyed. He's like, I didn't want to do that, and you made me do that, sort of thing. I don't know. I think I wasn't super stoked unnecessarily having Jon be, the commander there, but I think it's going to be more interesting than I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's worth noting something that Stannis told him when they were talking, by the way. He noted that Jon already has lots of enemies as well as lots of friends there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd best be careful.
So I think to sort of go into the last little point, we'll talk about Tyrion and his finally getting out of his little box.
Yeah, what I want to know is, he's been going crazy in that box for 2 episodes now, so why did Varys not let him out to walk around when they were in the middle of nowhere, and instead he decides to let him out when they reach Volantis?
Yeah.
That just seemed like that's a not Varys like move to make.
I'm with you, because I feel like they said something before that he was like there in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, yeah, but people recognize you, sort of thing. And then he's like, all right, well, would you run around this city with all these people and pretty much say who you are to like the first person you talk to? It seemed out of character.
Yeah, that was not Varys at all. But I know something Alexa wanted to talk about was the Red Priestess who Tyrion and Varys watched give a speech to her people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because all these Red Priestesses are like saying different things. Melisandre's just like, yeah, Stannis is like the one true king, and then this one's just like, yo, Daenerys, she came from the fire, she's like our savior. So it's just like, what's this red god telling these people, telling them like all these different things, basically. So I think it's interesting that they're just so different in what they're saying, but they're like following the same god.
See, they should explain it better in the show, I think, because in the books it's clear, because in Volantis, Varys mentioned that a lot of the people in Volantis are slaves, and so that's why they that's why they praised and worshipped Daenerys, is because she helped to abolish slavery, and they want that they want her to come to them and free them as well. But it's far more complicated as far as Melisandre and her reading of Stannis, but I can't even go into it really. But basically, she thinks Stannis is a very famous warrior reborn, and so and that's what the Red God told her, and so that's why she follows Stannis so intently. But yeah, the main reason I think the Red Priestess in Volantis just seems to. I don't think she sees Daenerys so much as like, she doesn't see him as a great warrior or anything, but she just sees her as, someone who's come along who has abolished slavery and she can make their lives better.
Well, I do remember her saying she was like reborn from fire, so that could also be the rebirth thing. So I just found that interesting.
So we didn't really get any of the Daenerys storyline this last episode.
Yeah, I don't think we even saw her this episode.
We had someone who was dressed like her, though. I know Andy wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird. I didn't realize that, like... I mean, I would assume that their name would be, like, going around. Like, they're like, oh, this woman's doing this stuff. But I didn't know it was, like... Yeah, and then now we're gonna have people dress up as her in the brothels. That'll be the big winner. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it was just like really funny to me because there's this girl with the golden hair and she just looks very much like Daenerys and she just turns around and her ass is like sticking out.
Yeah.
And my roommate who is probably more of a noob than you are in regards to Game of Thrones. Was like, oh, are
Mm.
they in Marine? Like, what happened here? And I was like, do you think Daenerys would actually dress like that? Like, let's be real here. Like, not even to like entice Dario Naharis. Like, come on now. So it was just really funny that she was like, oh, they're in Marine already. What?
And we could also tell that Tyrion is still suffering a bit from the trauma of everything that happened with Shay, because he met this other horde that he really liked, and he decided that he wasn't ready to engage with her yet, and so instead he goes to take a piss and then gets himself captured by Ser Jorah.
So
Yeah, he's all, I'm going to take you to the Queen.
yeah, and so
Which queen, though?
that's what it ended
Yeah.
with, and that's what we were trying to figure out was which queen is he talking about? Is he, where is he going with him? So I don't know. Is that something you know, or is that something that's still new to you?
Yeah, I know which queen it is, but I won't spoil it.
Okay,
I
Oh, no,
feel
it's
like
good.
he may have been like dissed by Daenerys, but like he still is pretty much like in love with Daenerys. So that's what I think. I don't think he's like gonna suddenly ally himself with the Lannisters.
So
But who knows? It's Game
if
of Thrones.
I remember correctly, wasn't he like exiled from King's Landing? Because he was.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He sold a couple of slaves, I think, and Ned Stark exiled him.
Oh, okay.
And that's why he was originally with Daenerys and Khal Drogo's Khalasar in the first place, was because King Robert had sent him out there as a spy, and he, as a reward, Ser Jorah would win his exoneration.
Hmm.
Okay. Because I remember it was that classic sitcom reveal last season where he was like, "Oh no, at first I was a spy, but now I really care."
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I was just so
I feel
disappointed.
like-
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's not that important. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was disappointed in how this episode portrayed Varys in multiple ways, because as we talked about, he would never normally be stupid enough to let Tyrion go roaming around in the first place, especially after he'd
Yeah.
been drinking so much. And then also, surely he would have scoped the place out. You feel like he would have noted that he would have recognized Ser Jorah probably, and I just think it was. It just felt like a poor portrayal of Varys to let all of this happen. Let him go free, and then let him get captured, and Ser Jorah just, basically carries him off unseen. That's just, that's not like Varys at all.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
a very
definitely.
calculated person.
He definitely wouldn't let him just wander around. And he's basically telling people, like, yo, I'm a Lannister, like, I pay off my debts. Saying, like, all these
and
things
that's.
that Lannisters say.
I thought that was. I get that he was drunk and doing that, but I figured the moment he said something like that, Bears would like pick him up and be like, "Nope, we're done. We're out of here. Let's go."
Mhm.
Like, I gave you a shot and you're not giving an effort, so we're not gonna deal with this. But he just sort of sat there looking oblivious, and I was like, "Uh-oh, where'd he go? Can't find him." It was very, very out of character. I'm with you, Joe.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder what Varys is going to do now, because he's kind of just off on his own in a brothel in Volantis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just, like, it felt so much like a parent who, like, lost his kid, and he was like, oh, where'd he go?
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Like, it was just...
I feel like you've
so
never seen him
long.
look kind of startled like he was in that scene. Like in the whole show, like that character's always like, he has his arms kind of pressed together and he's all like very calculated. In that scene, he was like, where is he? I lost him. Who knows?
Oops.
I think it's interesting that we had a bunch of talk about flashbacks for this season, and so far all we've had is like a
The one.
4-minute flashback at the beginning of the first episode. So I definitely thought they were going to be a more integral part of the show, and it's interesting that they haven't been so far. It's been relatively normality for Game of Thrones so far. So it'll be interesting to see sort of when they bring those in, or how, to what, level they bring them in again.
Or what if it's just like the only one?
Yeah, I thought it worked well with how they did it. I was worried that we were going to have, multiple ones per episode.
Like Lost.
A la our favorite show.
It just can't not come up.
But I think it's interesting that we've only gotten one, and it was so quick so far. So
I think it's strange that we didn't see the Sand Snakes this week, or
I
the
thought
fact
we
that
were going to.
I did too, and now we're three full episodes in, and we've basically seen nothing of Dorne aside from Prince Doran talking, and that's about it so far.
Yeah, and they
so
really
I sure hope
that
that
up.
picks up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I went online like that the Sand Snakes were going to be introduced episode 3, and I was waiting for it, and I was like, okay, what the heck? And the map showed up, and there was no Dorne, and I was like, okay, guess we're doing this again. But they didn't even come in.
Yeah, the credits have been confusing us this season, because I know, like we were saying earlier, we didn't see Dorne, did we? In last week's credits?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, we didn't see Dorne last week. They didn't show Volantis this week, but yet they did show Meereen. Maybe that was just because of the Daenerys whore. Maybe that's what inspired that. But
like,
but
why
it's
not
just,
show the places that we're going to? Like that's the whole point of the map.
Yeah, see, at least they showed Moat Cailin this week.
Mhm.
So we knew that was coming, but yeah, it's been, I'm not sure what they're doing with that this season. I sure hope they get it right, though, eventually.
I think they're just throwing us off, just kind of like, who's going to notice? We'll see what we can do. Like,
No one pays
one's gonna
attention to
notice.
these things.
I guess
Wrong,
they're just the only
guys.
nerds that do.
Like us.
Was there anything that you want to especially note on, Joe, in terms of the book and where we are in this season so far?
This season is moving along more slowly than I would have expected. I guess Jon's storyline is the only one that seems to be trucking along for the most part. But, no, I think as far as, I was worried that they would, a bunch of stuff would pass the 5th book now. But, I'm starting to increasingly get the feeling that that's not going to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in episodes 9 and 10, but it's just so slow-paced so far, and, Book 5 was very much a scene setter for all the chaos that's going to come in Book 6, and so far Season 5 very much feels the same way. So that's what I'm curious to see is, are we going to see this chaos play out this season, or are they going to hold it off until early next season?
I sure hope not. It's been so slow. Nothing's happened. I'm, getting kind of bored. I want to see stuff happen.
I'm ready. Are we going to get a fight or something soon? Can you tell us that much?
I'm trying to think actually. I'm not sure about any specific fights, but I will tell you will probably be in for a shock in Arya and Sansa's storylines.
Okay. I guess that's better than nothing. I want to see. When are we going to see someone else's head?
I mean,
great.
Yeah.
See, you have to wait though, because as you know, Stannis is up at the wall trying to build his army and he's getting ready to march on the north and take it over. So he has to, these things have to be planned out, and Daenerys, we want her to come back to Westeros, but she's stuck having problems in Meereen right now, and her dragons don't like her very much. So, they have to sort out their issues before they have to sort out their issues before they can go to war.
And Cersei,
see, now you know how book readers feel.
They know that we're bored. How rude of the characters. They should know that we're getting bored.
Alright, well, I guess that wraps up a extra long episode for us. So that was a recap of Season 5, Episode 3, and we will be back next week to talk about Episode 4.
Later, guys.